I want to tell you about the moment I understood what 10 years of giving actually cost. Not financially. I knew the financial cost. I had the bank statements, the transfer records, the specific monthly numbers that added up over a decade to something I had never calculated in full, because calculating it felt like a betrayal of the people I was giving to. So I hadn't calculated until I had to. Let me tell you how it started. I was 22, fresh out of college, first real job. The specific combination of youth and optimism that makes you believe your energy is unlimited and your resources will always expand to meet whatever is needed. My father had lost his job that year. Not dramatically. The company restructured. He was 54 and in an industry that had changed around him, and his skill set had not kept pace with the change. He was not lazy. He was not irresponsible. He was a man caught in a particular moment of economic reality that had nothing to do with his character and everything to do with timing. I had started helping immediately. The mortgage that month, then the next, then the utilities, then my brother Marcus's college application fees because my parents couldn't cover them and Marcus had worked hard and deserved to go. It was temporary, I told myself, just until things stabilize. Things stabilized, and then destabilized again. My father found contract work, inconsistent, lower paying than what he had lost. My mother's part-time position at the school district covered some things, but not everything. The mortgage became my responsibility without anyone officially saying so. Marcus started college and needed help with expenses my parents couldn't cover. My younger sister Lily had medical bills one year. Nothing catastrophic, but enough that someone needed to cover them. I covered them. The help became infrastructure, not emergency. Not temporary, assumed. I noticed when it became assumed. Somewhere around year 4 I noticed, but by then the help was woven into the fabric of how my family operated, and unwinding it felt like a cruelty I wasn't willing to inflict. So I kept going. Year 5, year 6, year 7. My career grew, my income grew. The proportion I gave remained roughly constant while the absolute amount increased because my capacity to give had increased. My family never asked where the money came from. They knew. They just never said thank you in a way that cost them anything. The crisis arrived the way crises often do, without warning, on an ordinary Tuesday. I had been at my position for 6 years. Stable, well-compensated, the kind of job that had given me the capacity to support everyone I was supporting. The company restructured. My position was eliminated. I received a generous severance. I had savings, not as much as I would have had if I hadn't been supporting a family for a decade, but enough to manage for several months while I found something new. I was not panicking, but I was scared. And for the first time in 10 years, I needed something from the people I had been giving to. Not money, I wasn't asking for money. Support. Someone to talk to. Someone to help me think through the options. Someone to sit with me in the specific uncertainty of a moment where everything I had built professionally had suddenly shifted. I called my father first. He was sympathetic. Genuinely, I believed. But the call lasted 11 minutes and concluded with him saying he was sure I would figure it out and that he had a doctor's appointment to get to. 11 minutes. I had spent 10 years making sure he had a house to live in. The call lasted 11 minutes. I called Marcus next, my brother who I had helped get to college, who had graduated, built a career, a life. He listened for longer, 20 minutes. Then said he was dealing with some things himself right now and maybe we could talk next week. Next week. I said of course. I said I understood. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table and looked at the wall, and I began, for the first time, to calculate. Not because I wanted the number, but because something in me needed to see it. The mortgage payments, the college expenses, the medical bills, the utilities, The hundred smaller things over 10 years that had seemed reasonable in the moment and accumulated into something staggering when placed end to end. I sat at my kitchen table for 2 hours, and I looked at the number, and I understood, for the first time, fully and completely, what I had given and what I had not received in return. My friend Dana called that evening. She had heard through a mutual contact that my position had been eliminated. She arrived 40 minutes later with dinner and wine, and the specific energy of a person who understands that showing up is not optional when someone you love needs you. We sat at my kitchen table. I told her everything: the job, the severance, the calls to my father and Marcus, and then, for the first time out loud, the decade. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Emily, how much?" I told her the number. She set down her wine glass. "Does your family know that number?" she asked. "No," I said. "Why not?" I thought about this. "Because I never wanted it to be transactional," I said. "I gave because I loved them, not to be repaid." "I know," Dana said, "but there's a difference between not wanting repayment and not expecting to be shown up for." She was right. There is a difference. My family called occasionally, brief calls. My mother asked how the search was going. My father mentioned a job posting he had seen that wasn't relevant to my field but meant well. Marcus sent a text once asking for an update. None of them came over. None of them offered to cover anything, not a dinner, not a utility bill, not the mortgage payment I had been making for their house every month for 8 years, and which I realized with a specific kind of clarity they had apparently assumed would continue regardless of my circumstances. Week 3, I stopped the transfer. Not angrily, not as a statement. I simply looked at my bank balance and my outgoing commitments and made the decision that I could not continue supporting a household that was not mine while mine was uncertain. I sent my father a message. "Dad, I need to pause the mortgage support while I'm between positions. I'm sorry, I know this affects the household budget, and I'll resume as soon as I'm stable again." He called within an hour. The call lasted 47 minutes. My father's first response was not concern for my situation. It was concern for the mortgage. "We've been counting on that," he said. "I know," I said. "We can't cover it ourselves," he said. "I know," I said again, "and I'm sorry, but I can't cover it right now either. I don't have income." "You have savings?" "Which I need," I said, "for my own expenses. For the first time in 10 years, I need my savings for myself." A pause. "We don't have anywhere else to turn," he said, and something in me, something that had been very patient for a very long time, became very still. "Dad," I said, "I have been paying your mortgage for 8 years. I covered Marcus's college, I covered Lily's medical bills. I have given this family a number that I finally calculated last week and that I am going to tell you now." I told him. The silence that followed was the longest of the conversation. "I didn't know it was that much," he said, finally. "I know," I said, "because neither of us ever said it out loud. But I need you to understand what I gave, and I need you to understand that when I asked for 11 minutes of your attention last month, that was all I was asking for. Not money, not a solution, just presence." Another silence. "I failed you," he said. "Yes," I said. "You did." My father called back that evening. He had spoken to my mother. He had spoken to Marcus. And something had happened, slowly, over the course of an afternoon, that I had not expected. They came over, all 3 of them, my father, my mother, Marcus, not with money, not with solutions, with presence, the thing I had asked for, the thing that had cost them nothing but time, and had not been offered until I named what its absence had meant. We sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I had calculated the number, where Dana had sat with me and said the thing I had needed to hear. My father spoke first. "I have been taking what you gave us," he said, "as if it had no cost, as if the giving was automatic, as if you had an unlimited supply of it." He looked at his hands. "I was wrong," he said, "and I'm sorry." Marcus said less, but he stayed for 3 hours, and sometimes presence is the only language that matters. I found a new position 11 weeks after losing the old one. Better title, better compensation. I resumed supporting my parents, not at the same level and not without a conversation about what that support meant and what it cost. We have that conversation now. We never had it before. It is not always comfortable, but it is honest. And honesty, I have learned, is the only foundation that holds under the kind of weight a family can place on one of its members over 10 years. Marcus called me 6 weeks after that kitchen table evening. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what you said, about the 11 minutes. "Yes?" "I'm sorry," he said. "I had time, I didn't understand what you needed." "I know," I said. "What do you need now?" he asked. I stopped. In 10 years of giving, I had never been asked that question. "Nothing right now," I said, "but the fact that you asked, that's what I needed." He was quiet for a moment. "I'll ask more," he said. "Good," I said. "So will I." People ask me if I regret giving. I don't. I gave because I loved them. I still love them. What I regret is the silence around the giving, the way we all pretended it had no weight, no cost, no limit. Love is real, but love without honesty is not a foundation. It is a performance, and I had been performing for 10 years. Not anymore.